halves, short turnaround they've been talking around about. Are you happy with the way the players are coming on before you fly out tomorrow?
Well, we've had a couple of brief training sessions at the moment. The main session is tonight, and but from a strategy preparation point of view, we've got a good handle of things, and we'll finish it off tonight with a good training session. So then we get on the plane and everything's pretty much organised.
Heavy going last week. It's been a wet week in Perth this week. I think generally in Melbourne and Eastern States it's been pretty good this week. So are you conscious of the legs and the ability to sort of run out 4 quarters? And will you have to be tactically a bit different this week considering the circumstances?
Well, it's the first time we played at Etihad this year, so that'll be interesting from our point of view. But I would have thought that players would like to play on a better surface, and that would make things a lot less complicated. You know, if you have a look at our GPS from last week, now we got beaten convincingly, but a lot of our guys are running better than they were 5 or 6 weeks ago. So from an output point of view, it doesn't appear to be a problem.
Mate, what's the latest on Sandy? Is he running hard, and how close is he?
He's running, yeah. It's I reckon I'll have a lot better gauge next week, and I'd like to think somewhere near next week he'd be playing. And that's, I mean, I've been saying that for the last couple of weeks, but as we know, it's a reoccurring injury, and we've got to make sure that if it's 3 or 4 weeks that he plays for the remainder of the season and hopefully beyond.
When you were sort of talking up to the Derby that he wasn't far away,
yeah.
Has there been any setback at all that's prolonged his return?
No, just that it's probably taken a little bit more time.
Caution more than anything else?
Oh, I think perhaps, but there's been nothing other than making sure that he's right this time in.
So considering the circumstances, there hasn't been any reason to sort of rush him in at all, considering the circumstances of the team?
No.
How's Jonathan Griffin coming along?
He trains tonight, so we'll see how he goes. You know, he didn't get through the training session last week, so once again we reassess after 5 or 6 days and see where he's at. So yeah, he'll train tonight.
Should he not come up, what options do you look at for the ruck?
You know, Zach was our number 1 ruckman last week, and in part we used Michael Johnson at times. So, just see what sort of strategy unfolds in that way.
Harvey, what's happened to Kepler Bradley? Is he off the radar, or had such a great start to the season, and then of course he got dropped?
He never played last week.
Sorry?
He never played last week.
Yeah. So where is he at in the scheme of things?
He's had a, before there was an admission of him being, he was out of the side for a month leading into that. He'd only kicked a goal, and then he's played quite well at times at waffle level, and he's had 2 minor knocks to his knee, and I think the other one was below his knee, if you know what I mean. So we'll see in time whether he gets a game. Yeah. I don't think it's when you have 34 inside 50s like we did last week and Kepler plays in and around that area, I'm not sure whether that's going to change the game.
What do you think's the bigger problem at the moment? As you said, the inside 50s and the centre stoppages, or how your forward structure is actually operating?
No, it's more the quality of supply firstly, and then the limited supply. So it's both. And areas that you mentioned, centre square, can be a really good outlet, and you tend to enjoy your inside 50s a lot more under those circumstances because there's not the crowding straight away, if you know what I mean. So there are a number of areas.
How can you improve that? Is it a matter of trying different players in the middle?
Yeah, and the way you move the ball and how.
You've been moving it a lot down you appeared to move it a lot down the boundary line, may have been due to the conditions against Hawthorn. Do you have to be a bit more offensive with your ball movement? I
mean, even the Sydney game was the same, and if you go back to the West Coast, get the Derby, it was a little bit, it was a congested game, it was a low scoring game too, so no, we're certainly aware of that at the moment, yeah. I mean, St Kilda's probably no different, although they do move the ball around a lot, and we'll see whether we can contain their scoring and put the pressure on in the game.
Luke Farland said earlier in the week he'd love the challenge on Nick Riewoldt. Would you extend that to him at this stage? Are you considering that?
Well, arguably Silvani has done a fantastic job on Franklin, so Nick didn't play last week, Riewoldt I'm talking about, so neither did Luke for that matter. So I'll be one of those two guys.
Is that something you have to keep doing with Alex, finding big jobs for him so he does keep developing?
No, not necessarily. I think Silvani's an interesting player, and don't discount him playing in a different position other than back. I remember the final when against Hawthorn and Aaron got hurt, and we used him in the ruck and also in the forward line. So he's got a few strings to his bow, Alex, beyond playing as a defender.
Harves, did you feel for Dean Bailey this week?
Well, you know, he's obviously an ex-teammate of mine. Not sure what outcome, what that's going to do for the short term, if you call it a remedy. I don't think there's any sense in sacking coaches mid-year or towards the end of the year. I like to think that a contract's a contract. And really, the strange thing is that they may well play in finals. It's not as if they were sitting in the bottom four. So, for those reasons, and you can talk about the margin the previous week, but reflective of that, all coaches go through losing by big margins. And I don't think that that should be the reason why it gets hurried up.
Because, you know, he seemed to carry himself a bit of dignity. I thought the way he went about it, that was the general perception. Did you feel that as well?
Well, that's him as a person, yeah. And I think you only have to look at the relationships he had with his players.
What about the comment he made about he was instructed to perform or to play players out of position in his early stage of proceedings? Is that added pressure on a coach, or does a coach sort of go with the general feeling within the club and what they need to do?
I mean, what's the clarity of that? That's from an outsider point of view. We're only speculating on what that means. So, I mean, I don't want to divulge into what he said during that time in his press conference, and that's for the Melbourne people to be able to organise and work through, I guess.
Can we ask about the Davis GWS situation? Eddie Maguire's come out today and claimed that they cheated to sign him, basically. What do you think about that claim?
I think Eddie's very protective at the moment.
So do you think there's anything to his claim, or do you think
I
it's
think
because of the situation?
Eddie's very protective at the moment. And we're all on alert about GWS and how the AFL have presented these two new clubs and what they can do. So we're all on alert. And it's going to happen to most clubs where they're going to lose a player. And we've just got to deal with it. And when that comes from our situation, we'll deal with it. But do we need to comment on it? Not necessarily.
There's talk that he'll earn triple what he would have earned to Adelaide at GWS. Do you think the market's been inflated a bit too much by the leeway they've been given?
It may well be for a couple of players, but obviously there's a salary cap, so they can't go too far with it. So there might be 2 or 3 players that, or 4 or 5 for that matter, at GWS, at the Gold Coast, that may get paid more than what they would at the previous club. That's how it is. But the remaining players on that list, they won't be overpaid.
Mark, are you feeling pretty confident that you've signed going forward the next season and beyond the core group of players that you need at this club, so GWS is a bit irrelevant for you?
Well, they've got next year as well, so we're sort of preempting things that sometimes can be out of your hands. I think from a management point of view of our contracts, we've done as much as we can. That's all you can do during that time.
How have you viewed St Kilda's improvement in recent weeks? What are you expecting from it?
Yeah, look, everyone forgets. I mean, they've been a great side for the last 4 or 5 years under Ross's reign. and probably defensively, arguably, they're still one of the best. Well, they are. And, you know, they've lost Hayes, and just recently they've lost Gwilt. I mean, Gardner sort of hasn't been there most of the year, but apart from that, the availability has been there for them, and they've still got those first round picks going back from the last 8 years up until now. So, yeah, they, by foot, their game plan, they're elusive, and it's going to be a tough game on Friday night. We understand that, and we look forward to it, though. And I remember, you know, last year we got quite close to them on 2 occasions. Even the game where they recently just beat us, we outscored them after half-time, but we let it get away from us too early. And we're fully aware of how they try to lock down games when they do get in front. So we'll see what happens.
Is Nick Subin going to be available for you?
Yeah, Nick Subin's available. So is Luke, obviously, and any other player we choose to pick that we need to match and beat St Kilda on Friday night.
How about replacing Matt de Boer? Is he a difficult player to replace?
Yeah, it's a different position. It does get mixed up at times, the role that he plays. But the desperation of what he does is probably the hardest thing we need to replace beyond the role, firstly. Yeah.
Mark, we saw Stephen Milne kick 8 goals a couple of weeks ago. Who do you think would be best suited to shut him down on the weekend?
Yeah, the little forwards are kicking a lot of goals. Whether it's Schneider, whether it's Peake, and you know, Montagna and these guys, and their midfielders can kick goals as well. So, and then they've got the big 2 down there. So we've got good avenues. So we've got to close that down. I like to think probably from a defensive point of view, probably got our best available defence at the moment. So it'd be a good challenge for those guys down there. I mean, look, you know, if you McFarlane, Silvani, Grover, and those sort of guys, and so we'll see what happens down there.